Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 27th Client Tech Talk today. It's Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. Hi, Carolina. Hi, Jensa.
Hello.
Hi, Anders.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. So today is a kind of a special day because we don't host our clients that often, our friends. So it's a very nice way of getting to know what they exactly do, what is their service about. And hopefully we will find out a bit about how it all began and what is going on today. So
And who they are as well.
And who they are, yes. So you can kind of start by kind of introducing yourselves, Jens and Anders, if you want to. So share a little bit about yourselves and we can move on from there.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us. Will be fun. Do you want to start?
Okay, I'm Jensa, and I'm from Czech Republic. I actually moved to Sweden for Panelista. It was a little bit more than 2 years ago, which is also when we started building Panelista. That was around 3 years ago, and I spent some of my time in Copenhagen as well. Then I went back to Czech Republic, and then I missed Scandinavians, so I'm back here. And I'm developer in Panelista.
Cool.
Yeah, and since we're a startup, you're a bit more than a developer, like developer / designer / product owner / a bit of everything, as it is with small companies as ours.
And you say that, like on startups, it's often like ///.
Yeah.
And you also water the plants and you buy the milk and.
Yeah, but we quite like that. I think overall.
I love that.
To work like that. And I'm Anders, and I'm also one of the founders. So we're 6 people in total who founded Panelista about 3 years ago, and me and Jensa, we are 2 out of those 6 people. And my background is kind of being a product person. Often work with product management and building digital products and digital businesses of different types, and try that in different kind of settings as an entrepreneur before this, and in big companies, in small companies. So I like that. I normally say I like the process of taking like an idea from the whiteboard to something that is used by a bunch of people. I like that journey a lot.
Yeah, that journey is actually quite hard. It's the hardest thing to do, actually, to turn something from the whiteboard into a product. So can you tell us a bit about what is Panelista actually about?
Yeah, we were talking a bit about that before this, like which description should we go for? Is it like the boring one where we're a software as a service product used by big companies to get feedback from their customers? Or should it be the more visionary one where we help people who create things for customers understand their customers? And I guess now I mentioned both, but that's what we are.
Which one did you pick? The boring or the fun one?
I guess we decided not to pick one. But it's basically
you do.
Yeah, but we're offered this digital product as a service, and people subscribe to it, and people are normally people at big companies that work in these kind of roles that create things for customers. So it's normally product people like ourselves that create digital products, customer experience people, user experience people, tech leads, could be communications people, business development people, innovation people. So we tend to summarize it with like the users we have, they are the people who create things for customers on an ongoing basis that really continuously work with things like that. And what we have created is we created our own method of involving customers in a fast-moving, agile way, and then we built a digital tool around this method. So that's basically Panelista, I would say.
It's sometimes
So-
tricky to explain what Panelista is, even though it's such a simple thing. It's having a tool to have a dialogue with your customers, but not many companies do that in this simplest way, where the dialogue is direct and personal. So part of what we have to do is to explain this new way to everyone.
We saw that introduction video. Sorry, Carolina. What was that about? Can you explain what was going on there?
Well, the main thing in that introduction video was kind of the behind the scenes, where you get feedback from your customers. So then you get like a feed of answers behind the scenes. If you're the person asking a question to your customer, you get a feed of answers behind the scenes, and you have a few different tools for analysis and for dialogue with them. So you can, in the comments, you can ask follow-up questions. So you have an initial question, but then when you get answers, you can also quickly ask follow-up questions. So you kind of learn more, ask people to, can you tell me a bit more about this? Or could you give me an example? So you really understand their feedback. And then you saw some tools with highlights and things. So that's about the analysis, to make that not into a lot of effort, but just make it super smooth, to just highlight the most important things people say, as you would in a document or something like that. So that's kind of what you saw, I think.
Yeah, it was a panel discussion, and in that case, it's not completely public. It's a selected panel of people, and after they answer, they actually get to see answers of the others, and they can comment on them and join the discussions themselves.
So if I were to sign up with an account at Panelista for 46 hours, I could have basically discussions and ask our users, what do you want to see? What do you want to do? How do you think this works? And I can do that in different ways, right? So you mentioned panel discussion now.
Exactly. So basically, I mean, we have two main features, but let's say like this. It always starts with a video question. So we always use questions in a video format, and a video question is simply like a selfie video of you, Carolina, where you record yourself, and you give background and context to a question, and then you ask your question, or you pitch an idea that you want to test with your customers, and you do that in the video. And when you have that video question, then you can distribute it in two different ways. Either you send it to a panel of your selected customers. Let's say you invite a bunch of 46 Elks customers like us, and you send the questions to that panel over time. That would be one way. Another way to distribute your video question would be to place it somewhere. Let's say in the admin interface of 46 Elks, you can place it as a button there. So either you send out video questions to a group of invited customers, and you have this discussion behind the scenes together with them, or you just place the video question somewhere. And somewhere could also be in a physical space. We have clients that use QR codes. Let's say we work with public transit authorities, and they want to gather feedback from on board a train. Then they put a sticker with a QR code, people scan it, they see the video, and they respond to the question.
That's really clever, because then you have two different ways of asking your clients, because I can imagine like different companies view their like discussions with their clients in different ways. So you don't want to like overload them with like, here's an email, here's another email, here's a fifth email. So then you have the two options of like asking them or like getting them to come to you to tell you things.
Exactly.
Yeah. It sounds like you're doing a good job of this is a kind of a service that, as I kind of described it, as bursting that bubble of you being in a bubble when you create a service or a product. So we all experience that when we build something, like almost in everyday tasks and work that we also do 46 hours, Carolina. So it's like we are building something, but we don't know exactly if that is something of value to the end customer. We kind of presume that it is, but we are not that sure. Is that kind of the whole thing about Panelista?
Yeah, it would be used for that. It would be used to explore needs to understand what the customers or the potential customers of this service, what they need, not what they want necessarily always, but what they need is the key. It's a common misconception to just ask the customers for what they want and then try to build it. Not always awesome, but understanding their needs and then also testing ideas, like pitching something like, I'm thinking of creating this startup, what do you guys think? I mean, you can start early like that. And then also evaluating the things that you have already launched. So those are kind of the phases where people ask questions to their customers, and it kind of loops over and over again. So in one sprint something is relevant, maybe in the next sprint something else is relevant. But yeah, definitely asking questions early on is something we recommend, so it doesn't become that you involve the customers when you have already fallen in love with your idea and invested 500 hours into it, or convinced your boss that you should do this. You should kind of involve them when you're at the whiteboard stage, so it's easy to change direction. I mean, I made this mistake many times to involve people super late, and I'm kind of just hoping for them to give me 2 thumbs up so I can launch my thing, right? And that means I'm not really ready for feedback. I'm just asking to ask. Yeah.
So I like that, like, Panelista is a tool to like get in sort of early in the process, because just as you do, like, I often also like, oh my god, this is such a good idea, I'm so good, and then I build it, and then I'm like, look at this, guys, and people are like, what? No, we don't need that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
but it happens.
Yeah,
like,
so it's like
you get to kill your darlings with Panelista.
So it's not about having that feedback from the end customer. It's more about getting that feedback from the relevant experts in the field. So, yeah.
It depends. I mean, I would say most of our clients, they use Panelista to talk to their end customers, but it varies a bit which target group is most relevant. But yeah, normally it would be end customers. And I mean, we use it ourselves to, we have a panel called Panelista Labs, which is a bit meta, but it's a panel on Panelista to talk about Panelista with Panelista users, where Jensa and me and our colleagues, we send out video questions to people from the companies using our service to improve Panelista. And we could send out questions about like a feature we're planning, or an existing feature that we want to understand what's not great about it, how can we make it better. And sometimes it's something else, it's about communication. We want to understand how they use wording, or we're thinking of having a big birthday event this fall. That will be our next question. We'll send out a question and be like, we're planning a full day in Gothenburg and invite a bunch of our clients, a bit like how this session is, but to meet up with a bunch of the clients. And we want to ask them what do they want to do together with us, and what do they want to hear, and would they come?
Yeah.
So that's a way for us to test one idea. Our idea there is the Panelista Day, and we would test it with our panel.
I love that. I want to be in that panel.
We'll invite you.
Nice.
Can you tell us a bit about the Panelista beginnings? So how did it came out as an idea? What happened? What motivated you to go into that direction?
Yeah, maybe I can give the first background, and then as Jensa stepped in, you will have a lot of the what happened from writing the first line of code until launching it. But
from the whiteboard to like the text editor.
But we started. Yeah, what did it start with? What is a good starting point? But like, it started as a kind of a idea where we the founders, we worked in many different kinds of businesses. I mean, Jensa has been a developer. I've been working with product management. A few of the others been management consultants and etc. So we did different things, but we were all building things, and we were all hearing that everyone talks about being customer centric, and all the management groups talk about it, all the companies talk about it. But it was often mostly talk. So we wanted to create like a solution to make it happen, to actually involve the customers on the journey of creating something. So that was the seed, but we had no idea of how to do it. And then we invited a bunch of smart people that we knew in our network, and we did a co-creation session in our office. where we it was people from all kinds of companies, and we asked them like, how do you work with customer insights today? What's difficult? How do you involve your customers? And we started sketching and planning some idea, and then I think we did another session like that where we pitched the idea that we then created. We started making some wireframes after that, so we had just like pretty ugly designs. Really ugly designs. And then we put together a presentation, and we actually pitched it to our first potential customer, and they liked it and decided to go with it. So they bought it when there were only wireframes. There was no product. So then we had to build it. And that's when Jensa came in. Also, that's when we tricked him into joining the team and coming to Sweden, kind of.
Yes, you lured me onto the Panelista idea, but it was already pretty well defined idea on what the vision is, and it sounded very interesting. Customer feedback was not my field that I cared about before, but this tool seemed like it has a clear purpose and some cool twists. Like, for example, the video question. It's a bit of a side step, but it's a very important part of what Panelista is. But as Anders said, we went from whiteboard sketches and wireframes and already one existing client to product 1.0. Was it in 4 months?
Yeah, something like that. It was pretty fast.
Something like that.
Every line of code written by you.
In many different countries as well, as I was working, I think one and a half of those months on my trip through Norway and Finland and whole Scandinavia. But it was very, very cool experience. And in that time, we had to narrow the idea down to something that actually works. And I think we were quite successful at that. And after those 4 months, we actually launched on the date that we planned to launch on. The problem was that we had that one client, and I think that we didn't have extremely strong plan on how to get 100 more. And it proved to be quite a challenge.
Build it and they will come.
Yeah. Exactly. No, that's a good summary. And
but that's so cool to hear. Like it must have been such an intense, short journey, but like believing in something, I guess it feels worth it that it got so intense.
It was quite fun. I think we made it work in the time before because we were quite pragmatic and realistic, and we were ready to cut out things that we wouldn't have time for.
So you had like the MVP in the end, like the most.
I think so. We definitely didn't define the product completely and then build exactly that after 4 months. Definitely not. Yeah. But at the same time, it worked after 4 months, and it was complete in its purpose. So that felt good.
But there were a lot of things to figure out, just like how do we onboard our client into our product we just built. So we went down and did a full day together with them and prepared something, and it worked out pretty well. And after that, we have polished that quite a lot along the way, of course, but all these little things. But yeah, definitely distribution is I think for every startup that is kind of like us, we're bootstrapped, right? We use our own funding, and we don't have venture capital behind us or anything. So then distribution is always the challenge, building up those sales channels. It's different. Like I worked in big companies and launched products there. It's awesome because you can use their channels and just deploy it and get it out to people. But here you have to be the one putting it in the hands of people. So we knew that it would be a challenge, but still we were not prepared, I think.
But isn't it like, I just like, I'm so curious when you ask people at like the sketch idea sort of stadium, what did they say? But like, how do you talk to your clients? What did they say? Did they like do a Google form? Did they send a newsletter, an email? Did they call their customers? What
Yeah,
did people do before Panelista?
I think yeah, a little bit of everything. So I think it was very easy to find consensus about what the problem is and like the challenges.
Yeah.
That it's very time consuming to do qualitative research. I mean, things like interviews and workshops, people love doing it. It's very valuable, but it takes a lot of time and resources. So it often ends up being a survey, or it ends up being nothing, and then you feel bad about it. So that's kind of, that was common among people we talked with. Even yeah, it could be really big companies or little startups. They talked about that in a similar way, that they ended up guessing in their meeting room more often than they wanted to, or
Yeah.
that they involved people very late, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Just simply because it became a pretty big project to make it happen. So that's
Yeah,
what we.
because you don't really have that time.
Yeah.
Like you don't have the time to do that workshop that you want to do with your customers in order to.
Yeah,
get
exactly.
there. Yeah.
I mean, I love doing interviews myself or workshops. We still do it sometimes, for sure. But let's say I like to do 5 quick interviews, and that sounds super fast, right? But it takes like 3 working days to find people, book the interviews, execute the interviews with a few breaks in between, and then kind of put together the materials and share it with the team. I mean, and who has 3 extra working days during a normal sprint? I mean, that's really hard. So then it gets outsourced, and then you're kind of far away from the insights, and you don't get that chance to quickly ask a follow-up question or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
and with Panelista, because that's what I'm feeling when I talk to you, and when I talked to you before, Anders, that like I can still keep the conversation between me as a company and my client. Like I don't have to ask somebody else, can you please go out on the town and like ask people what they think? Because
yeah,
then
exactly.
it's not me. I don't get to hear what my client wants,
Exactly.
like from us.
And that's also part of, I mean, working in an agile way, that the team can be, you know, they can do their own thing. They don't have to rely on other parties. They can move much faster. They can ask a question on a normal Thursday right before they build something, and they can do it themselves. They know which follow-up questions are most relevant. Someone else wouldn't know that, but the person, I mean, if we are building something, we know what we are curious about or what needs to be clearer. So yeah, that's a big part of it, to get that direct channel between the team creating something and then the customers who they create things for.
Yeah.
So I think that's essential. And this is a way to do it in a kind of personal and scalable way. We tend to think of our video questions and the follow-up questions together. I tend to think of them as kind of micro interviews that you can place in different places. So that's a simpler way to think about it, rather than, you know, a survey or something where you have decided already what you want to talk about, because you have to define all the questions beforehand, and you don't have a chance with the follow-up questions. So this is something much more dynamic, where you shoot out that initial question and then you ask follow-up questions in the discussions.
And
it feels like it gets very personal that you had the video. Sorry for interrupting you, but it feels personal. Like I can ask you guys here.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
like all the people that are listening right now, they will also hear the question, and they will see me, and they will know that I'm asking because I want to know. I want to do better for you. So
that's a big point of Panelista, that personal aspect, and that's the reason behind the video format. It was already in that first idea that was on the whiteboard. We want to ask questions with video format. And it has a lot of drawbacks. It's hard to ask a question in a video, to record yourself, compared to just writing it out. That's much easier, and to record yourself can be uncomfortable, but it's worth it for sure. It creates a personal feel in that discussion. It is no longer company X that's asking anyone on the street this particular question. It's René who is asking me. And I won't be rude in my response. I won't say just no or yes, no or yes, because he put the time in to record the video, and he asked me. I will actually put some time and thought into my answers, and that's what people do.
Yeah.
It becomes quite personal, and very polite. And still now we have more ways to ask people, but it's always a video question.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to that thing that we created a method and then we built a digital tool around it. Video is both video, asking in videos, and being able to ask follow-up questions immediately. Those are two key components in the method. And the video, I mean, yeah, like you said, that personal thing, it generates engagement because it creates a relationship between the person asking and the person answering. And that engagement then in turn generates high quality feedback with quite little effort. So you don't get a bunch of one-liners, you actually get pretty thought through, longer answers. So yeah, it's definitely a key part of the method. And it was a hypothesis from us that we validated it pretty early, because it was a big bet for us, of course. If that didn't work, it'd be like, oh shit, what do we do now?
So it's about being authentic. It's about reducing the amount or the will to answer impolitely, as you said, Jensa, like in the sense that it reduces that internet communication, typical comment section in communication. So it's kind of, oh, there's a real person behind all of this, and him or her is engaging in a conversation with me right now. So yeah, that's a pretty cool touch. Cool.
Yeah,
I was ready for the question, like video as a format, and you kind of answered it. So, yeah, it's really cool that you decided to use that format, and the reasons are quite astounding.
Yeah, and the panels, it often creates that feeling of for the customer that they are behind the scenes in the company, that they are on a journey together with the product development team, for example. And they get questions directly from people creating things they use every day. So I mean, no one gets like a warm feeling about responding to a survey, right? But being part of a panel, people actually, they express themselves where they are very happy to be part of it, and they kind of want to do it again. So that's cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
It feels like a soft value, like us having this discussion here. Like we could have this discussion on email or Slack, but it wouldn't be the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's about kind of using, so what we're saying in 46Alex a lot is using multitude of channels. Like the whole point of it is to have a lot of channels, and different channels are kind of valued differently by us as humans. So we often say, like in SMS communication or calls, you kind of value that communication differently than having another, I don't know, email being sent. Being called is similar to being when someone rings at your door. So it's quite the similar feeling. So how did you implement, and why did you implement some of our features into your product?
Yeah.
It's absolutely true that those different channels have different feeling. For us, one of the most important interactions where we need to approach people and those and customers is when someone asks the question. It is a video question, but how do we tell people that there is that new video question? And right now, that first notification comes with SMS because it's a very urgent channel. You don't typically leave unread SMS for a week as you might your email. And so people respond immediately. Not everyone, but when they do, they often do respond immediately. And also it's a channel that's concretely, it works on phones, which works quite well for us. We don't have a mobile app, but we have a website that works just as well on a phone as it does on desktop. And so this interaction where it's immediate, there's a new question, you watch it and you can answer immediately. It works for us quite well. And we then use email as well as a secondary way to approach people, so that they can get back and be reminded, okay, there is a question. And we see that second wave of activity. But we chose SMS and still we keep it because it is more urgent. It is more immediate.
And we do get those answers really fast. I mean, let's say you have a panel. Let's say if you would have a panel of 46 customers, you would have like 50 people in the panel. You would shoot out a video question to them on a Monday at 1 p.m. or something. At 3 p.m., you would already have like 20 answers sometimes. And it'd be that like you would start learning immediately. Then more answers will roll in later, and we would send little nudges and reminders and things. But that SMS triggers like instant responses, and it's pretty cool with that kind of speed in a process like this.
I'm glad to hear that. Like, first of all, it feels like you have turned it around. So often I hear people using email first, and then they have the reminder on SMS. But here you guys have made like the opposite choice, and then you get the fastest feedback. Because I can imagine like just going on myself and my habits. Like I would tend to answer an SMS before I answer an email. Not that I don't think emails are important, but like I don't have the notifications on. An SMS I always get, even if I'm on the train and I have bad reception.
Yeah. No, but it really it cuts through the noise, the SMS, which is nice. And that's also like the idea about the responsive web app that we have, that you don't have to download an app. You click a link in the SMS, you land on a video question, and you can answer it whenever or wherever you are. And that's kind of the idea. That's why it's worked for some pretty crazy scenarios. Like there was a panel of people working in healthcare during the pandemic now, and they managed to shoot out questions to them during the pandemic and get feedback, because they didn't bother them by setting an appointment or anything. They could just quickly answer when they had a little break, and they felt like it was a nice personal thing. So it worked. It would probably not have worked amazingly well to set up 12 interviews or bombard them with surveys, but this format worked well there. So that was cool to see.
Cool.
So cool.
Can you just go about and explain, to recap, explain the whole process, how it works? You mentioned you mentioned panels. There's also touch points. How does it all connect? How do you use it? Can you kind of go through one scenario of it?
Yeah, can do that. Mm-hmm. You, me?
I can describe a typical flow of a panel question. There is a panel of 50 customers, and you would like to ask them a question. So think of a good question that will inspire some thoughts. You record yourself. You either ask it immediately or you schedule it for tomorrow or some other day, when you want to approach those people at a specific hour when it's convenient. And then that panel of people who previously showed their interest, okay, I actually want to be part of this company's journey, or I want to help them improve their product. They will get a SMS telling them that there is a new question from René at 46 Elks. This is what he's asking. And some panelists already immediately watch the video and then reply. And as soon as they reply to this question, they get to the discussion where they see answers from everyone else. And so they can comment on each other's answers and like them as well. And also, the person who asked the question is typically part of the discussion as well, for asking follow-up questions, to explain some things that might not be clear, or to find out more about the topic. And the panel questions, they don't last forever. Typically, they last around 3 days. It is a known thing among the panelists. So when you get the question, you don't leave it for a weekend. You know that you should answer when you have a chance. And so it's a nice time-boxed discussion that ends with a report that we generate, which is a simple place. We can compare it to a PowerPoint presentation, where you get insights into what happened in the discussions. What were the topics that people were mentioning? You can see a summary of your own highlights that were interesting to you. And you can note down the things you've learned to have it all in one place, so that you can then share it with other people, perhaps your coworkers. I think that is the typical flow of one panel question.
Yeah.
I also like the
I
touch
love to
points.
hear that.
I love the touch points that you have. Can you kind of explain a bit about the touch points? It's a pretty cool idea to place them in public, and not only in public, but in some spaces.
Yeah, I mean they are pretty similar in a way. One difference is that the people who respond, they don't see each other's answers. In a panel, you're kind of part of a little community for a moment there, and you see each other's answers and things. But in a touch point, it's one-to-one between the person asking and answering. But basically, again, you create that video question, but rather than sending it out to a group of selected customers, you place it somewhere. And if you place it in a digital space, you can create a link inside Panelista and place that there. If let's say it's in an email, or if you want to place it on a website, we have a little code snippet that you can paste, and it becomes a beautiful interactive button. And if it's in a physical space or like on a physical product, let's say, in public transport, or when we work with e-commerce, they might put something in the order box that they deliver. Then there would be a QR code that people scan, and the video question would pop up. So I mean, our vision for that was kind of, you should be able to, tap your customer on the shoulder and ask them a question in a personal way at exactly the right moment. That was the idea for us. So then we needed to make it possible to place the video questions everywhere to hit that right moment. That was kind of the idea.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, and our customers are much more creative than we are. Like we have some ideas of how you can use things, and then they come up with more ideas. It's pretty cool. We also we use our own panel to ask questions and learn about that. And I mean, our customers, they tend to be, most of them are pretty big companies. Most of them are Swedish, but they kind of many of them have global audiences. So it's a lot of banks and insurance companies and big e-commerce companies, some scale-ups, things like that. A bunch of public sector companies like public transit authorities and utility companies. So all kinds of stuff. People who have a lot of customers, and it tends to be those kind of things. And because that a bunch of our customers, they have global audiences, it was kind of a mess for us to get the SMSs working. Actually, when we worked with a previous large American provider of SMS before 46Elx, and we decided to leave them for 46Elx simply because we had a bunch of issues, and it was such a core part of delivering the question to people. It had to work. It had to work every time, and it had to work globally. So that's the reason why we reached out to you guys, and everything has worked well since.
Cool. Nice to hear.
Glad to hear that.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
But I think, I love that you say that our clients are so much more, they have so many ideas. They basically take your product and they do something with it in different ways that you guys didn't even imagine. And the same thing is for us. You're our clients and you're doing something you send an SMS, but you do that in a different kind of way than we can ever imagine.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so cool.
It's a very creative thing and it's a source of inspiration when you talk to your clients. So in 46Elx, we have this almost a routine of calling up new signups, people that sign on. And we ask them, hey, how are you going to use our service? Because it's good to know generally if someone is going to use it for some things that are not be intended for it to be used. And it's a good inspiration most of the time to have wow, okay, you can use SMS for that also. So it's kind of, it is quite similar to what you mentioned in the sense of having that inspiration come from the clients and in real world examples. Cool. Yeah. So thank you all for joining. It was a very nice discussion. We learned a lot today, and I'm very happy that we kind of got the glimpse of what Panelista is about. Thank you again. Hopefully everyone will have a nice weekend. Happy Friday, everyone. If you want to, it's so basically the webpage is panelista.com. You have a Swedish, you have an English page also. language, so anyone can get on board and learn a lot about it quite fast. It was quite easy for me to comprehend what's going on there, and I'm sure everyone will figure it out quite fast. And using this video, it will be even faster. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining in. Comment, ask questions if you have later on. They're more than welcome. I'm sure everyone will be happy to answer them. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey there, thank you for watching the Tech Talk. I would like to let you know about our cool meetup group called Startup Coffee Uppsala. Every first Tuesday of the month at 8 a.m., we kind of gather around and talk over coffee about interesting tech stuff. Feel free to join. I'll leave the link to it into the description. Bye.